Hey ADV riders, I'm going to show you how to get the throttle cables and the carburetors, intake air box, all that stuff back together. So this is the pull cable. We'll verify that by making sure that that's the right one. We're going to pull this way. So I'll drop this bad boy in here. It's always a little bit of a dance to get everything connected. Cable drops in through there, goes into the groove. Pull on a little bit and drops into there, and then of course the fun part of getting the nut started. And okay, so that's started. We'll spin this guy almost pretty much all the way in. I slack up the adjusters at the bar, and that's where I make the final adjustment. Okay, so this is what they call the close cable. It goes on the bottom. Drop that through there. Start the nut, get her in there, all the way in. Okay. And just tighten these jam nuts with a 10mm wrench. Okay, now, fun part. Enrichment, or choke, whatever we want to call this. The long one goes to the front carburetor and the short one goes to the back carburetor. I pull these rubbers back so that it makes it easier to turn this section, so to drop that in there. Also, one thing that you need to check is, does it function correctly? Does it pull the lever, release the lever, and does it retract all the way? Sometimes the cable gets damaged up by the neck area or anywhere else. It gets water in it, gets rusty, and it doesn't want to move, and the enrichment plungers will stick. They'll stick in the open position because the springs aren't strong enough to close them, and then you're chasing your tail on problems. So make sure that that's the case as far as them moving freely as you move the lever up on the bar. Get this one all the way in. Push the rubber over it. And then we'll get the other one started. And route this one down and under, over like that. Yeah, it looks better. Okay. TPS sensor, didn't change that, so all we got to do is plug it back into the main harness up here in the frame. These bad guys right here are the carb heaters. So there's a ground wire and then there's the hot wires. Talked about the bolt in another video. It's a 7mm head. It's always kind of an interesting little dance to get these to lay in exactly where you want them. We'll come back and put some tie wraps on the frame to hold these into position. And then I'm going to come back and put this bolt in, but I'm not going to show you that right now. Okay? And then we will eventually put the fuel hose back on here. We're going to tie wrap this, or bungee this up and out of the way for now, so that I can show you kind of the procedure of setting the air box in place. Let's see here. Is that going to stay put? Okay. So the air box drops down in here quite nicely, and I have rags in there, but you just push on it forward slightly. The other thing that I did before I put all this back together is that these bungs that are part of the cylinder head, sprayed them with carburetor cleaner, made sure that they're completely clean. so that when I put the intake manifolds back on, they're nice and tight and clean. Okay, so that sets down in there. There's a little drain hose that's over here on the other side, and you kind of mess with that. This was an abandoned hole. What I do is I take some painter's tape, put it on one side, put some RTV on the other, put tape over it so that I'm not running my fingers through it all the time, and then that allows me to continue to work. Alright, intake manifolds. Talked about them a little bit previously. There's a tab that sits just behind the upper clamp, and this is the orientation that you want this to go in. Push these all the way down. You want to make it so that you can get to that upper clamp at an angle like that on that one, and then this lower clamp you want to make it so that you can get to it from this right side service panel. Do a similar thing for this front manifold, and I'm pushing these down pretty hard. You want to make sure that they seat completely. You can see if they're up. I'm going to rotate just a smidge. Alright, so you can, the stopper is behind this, keeps it from rotating. You can get in here with a tool, and then this lower clamp would be about like that. What I'm fumbling around to do right now is find the tools that I should have had prepared so that you didn't have to wait for me to show you tightening up that lower clamp. So this lower clamp, we're going to run it all the way to the limiter right here. You don't want to go over tight. You will strip that nut. Okay. Again, these are 99% loose, these upper clamps. Do not forget to remove that, because it will not run. And if it does kind of run, it's going to be a disaster. Okay. One of the other things that you want to make sure that you remember is this gasket that goes in the forward section of the airbox, and it's kind of a seal and anti-chafing for the cables and the wires as they come through the front of the airbox. Get the wires and everybody in there super happy, and free up the carburetors. And I'm just going to demonstrate this to you right now. There's other pieces that are missing, obviously. Fuel hose was in place. We'd feed it down through that hole right there, and it'd come through the frame with a long screwdriver to get into the hole to kind of guide it, get into the fuel hose to guide it down through the frame and the engine. But with everything loose, so what we're going to do is we drop the front carburetor in, and with a forward pressure and a little bit of down, we push it down, and the carburetors are set. Now, again, this choke cable needs to be secured slightly forward. Otherwise, what ends up happening is that the carburetor linkage will interfere. So you want to get that in place. And the vent hoses, which are not there, will drop down through these two holes right here. They go down to the V of the engine just aft of the starter motor. So that's kind of the rapid fire how to put the carburetors and the airbox together. And then once the carburetors are set, you can come in and I'll demonstrate. This is where the tool comes in to loosen and tighten, like that. so that when I push on this, it doesn't go away. That's why that tab's there. I don't know how many times I've found the tab all messed up, or the clamps in a bunch of different directions. This is the way that they came from the factory, and it works very well. So if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and put them in the place below, and or contact me at ken@advmachines.com. All right.